Hi, everyone. Today on I Think I Can Be Happier, oh, gosh. Okay, and again. Hi, everyone. Today on I Think I Can Be Happier, we're going to be revisiting some of the strategies from Hannah's therapist, Neha, in episode 3, and we're going to be looking at them through an executive function lens. So if you haven't listened to that episode yet, you should check it out if you want to hear more about what we're talking about today.
Yeah, but before we talk about all of that, can you help us out by giving us a 5-star rating on Spotify or Apple or wherever else you listen? It helps people find us. Thank you, guys. So when we were talking about what we could do, I mean, you had said to me that it would be fun to do an episode on executive functioning. And how cool is it to take something that was already so helpful to us and then kind of put like our EF spin on it? Yeah. So Amy and I went through all of the strategies that Neha shared with us, and we chose some that we wanted to kind of dig into today. So we'll be taking a look at a couple of the frameworks that Neha mentioned, and then some of the mind shift and reframing strategies, and then also just some daily practices and habits that you can try to build into your life. And this is like all through the executive functioning lens. So if you are not familiar with executive functioning, here's your primer.
Thanks, Hannah. That's great. That's great. All right.
Should we quickly go over the executive function skills?
Excellent idea.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's do that.
Yes.
Let's see if we can remember them without a list.
Ooh, I like this. I feel like mine are not fully functioning today, Hannah, which is not good since it's like 3 p.m.
Yeah. Right. I took my meds today, so I'm doing pretty good. I'm doing pretty good.
Yes.
I remembered at noon that I should take them.
Very good. Very good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
all right. You start, and then I'll fill in if you forget it.
I feel like I'm on the spot here, Hannah. All right. So
you are.
Our executive function skill areas. So this includes attention, memory, task initiation, planning, prioritization, and time management, cognitive flexibility, self-regulation. Did I say metacognition? I don't know.
I don't think so. I don't think you did.
I don't know how many areas that was.
Yeah,
What did I missed something? Organization. That's a big
organization. Yes.
Yeah.
Also, I've been adding in goal-directed persistence lately.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. And then I also like to talk a little bit about how self-regulation is made up of emotional regulation and impulse control or inhibition, and how important those are. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Super important.
Yeah. So these skills get us through our days. Oh, and they can help us be better at being happier.
Yeah, absolutely. Getting through your day successfully, I definitely think leads to feeling more content overall and feeling accomplished, which is always a nice way to feel. So,
yes. All right, so let's start this PERMA model that Neha mentioned. And we did mention this before in our first episode, so we don't really need to go too deeply into it. But I love this: positive emotions, engagement, relationships, meaning, accomplishment. And something that I really like about it is that speaking of the executive function skill of organization, like it just kind of helps you organize the aspects of happiness, of contentment that in your mind. And I think Neha even mentioned that, like when we have these frameworks, it does really help us get organized in our heads.
Yeah, Hannah, I think this is a really good framework just to help assess like any areas that might need attention in our lives, and that way we can prioritize those areas the most. So if you notice that, maybe it's relationships you need to work on, really prioritizing that aspect of your life and figuring out how to fit more of those meaningful connections into your days or your weeks as well.
Yeah, it really supports so many EF skills. I also like the idea of Covey quadrants. I don't know if people have heard of Covey quadrants, but it's also the Eisenhower matrix, and it's just a good way of organizing your thoughts and rating things, whether they're urgent and or important.
Right.
And so maybe even going through that PERMA model and deciding like maybe some things are urgent in here, or maybe maybe they're just mostly just important, and then kind of figuring out the priorities based on kind of like how you feel about each one.
Yeah, Hannah, that is one of my favorite tools for prioritization, and just being able just to kind of look at each area of, what is most urgent and important in your life. A lot of people do that daily with that tool. You can do it weekly, monthly, however often it suits your needs. But yeah, it's a great one if you all are familiar with that one.
Yeah, maybe we could put a link in the show notes for a graphic on that, because it can be hard to imagine if you haven't ever seen it before.
Right.
All right. So let's talk about the zones of growth model, which I really have found so helpful for myself. This idea of the comfort zone, and then outside of the comfort zone is the fear zone, and then outside of that is the learning zone, and then beyond that is the growth zone. And this visual model is just so helpful for me for understanding that journey from like that comfort zone out to where we can actually learn and grow as a person.
Hannah, this specific model, this was a new one for me. I've used similar things in coaching related to this idea, but I really like this model and how I found a really great visual for this too that lays it out, just being in your comfort zone, that sense of safety. And Neha had talked about the idea of identifying whether or not you are unhappy versus just uncomfortable. So really thinking about, am I actually unhappy in this moment, or am I just uncomfortable? Oftentimes it's the latter, and really sitting in that discomfort is where the growth happens for us. Just being okay with being uncomfortable momentarily can lead to some great gains on the other side of it.
Just this morning, I was reading some research from a guy called Moshe Bar, and I think that's his name. And I read an article that we'll link in the show notes, but he and his team have found that pushing through discomfort is actually really important for many aspects of our health. It's not just to be able to try new things, but they have found that when we progress forward. So a lot of their research is on progression. So always moving forward. And they and other researchers have found that when we are able to move forward and, push ourselves out of that comfort zone and do something new and move into some space that we haven't been in before, push through that discomfort, it actually is super important for a variety of aspects of our health, like our mood. We build resilience. It supports our physical health, and also slows some of the processes that are associated with aging, and it strengthens our executive function skills.
I love that, Hannah. Just listening to you describe that really made me think about just the whole concept of growth mindset also. Being able to push through those moments of discomfort really does help build that resiliency and feeling, that we're capable of doing harder things. So.
Yeah, and I know one of the things we talked about, or one of the executive function skills that we framed a lot of our tools around, was cognitive flexibility. And it just really reminds us that when we are able to think flexibly, we are able to imagine ourselves progressing, right? Yeah. If we can't even think so flexibly that we can imagine us living in a different way or being a different way, then how can we envision that? If it's difficult to us to envision it, then it's really hard to come up with a plan or to find the motivation or the energy to move towards something different. So that's why it's so important to practice those flexible thinking skills.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really important.
I just wrote a blog post about cognitive flexibility, and so much of this just ties right back to that, and how we really miss out on a lot if we when we are rigid in our thinking. It does unfortunately limit our opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes we just have to get out of our own way, get out of our head, get out of our way. Yeah.
So what are some recommendations? If you were working with a client and somebody said I'm stuck in my comfort zone and I'm stuck there by fear and I really want to push past that, what kind of strategies or suggestions would you give to a client who is interested in pushing past that?
I always recommend starting really, really small. What is the smallest step you can think of to maybe try to step out of your comfort zone just a little bit, just for a really short period of time, just to kind of test the waters. So that, coupled with some positive self-talk as well, really tuning into that inner dialogue, paying attention to that, determine if it's helpful and encouraging, or if it's holding you back a little bit. I really like the coupling of both of those. What about you, Hannah? What are some of your go-tos with your clients?
Yeah, that too. The idea of asking ourselves, like, is this story that I'm telling myself in my head true? Like, could I stand up in front of a court, and not commit perjury by saying this, whatever the story is true? And oftentimes it's not. Right? We think it's true, but it's actually not true. And that, like you said, that dialogue, that narrative inside our head is so loud. So learning to identify, like Neha said, like, am I unhappy or am I uncomfortable? Is this true or is this not true? And the other thing that I always remind my clients is that it's really hard to this is a risk, right? It's a risk to step out of your comfort zone. It's much easier to take risks when we feel like our needs are being met. And so if we're getting enough sleep, I feel like I always tie everything back to foundational routines, but I really do think, like, if we are rested enough, if we are not hungry, if we are, regulated as much as possible, then yes, it is going to be easier to identify which story is true and to just do that tiny one small step, or even to identify it.
Yeah.
Because if we're super dysregulated and we're super overtired, we're just gonna be like, it's just one big hard thing. I can't even break it down into one small step because it's just awful and hard.
Yes. Yeah. That's really important. Yes, absolutely. The regulation before any of these things. Regulation first. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just makes everything easier and clearer as well. And Hannah, just going back to that, the idea of tuning into that inner dialogue. I know that you have an exercise that I've heard you describe that I absolutely love. I think it's the table exercise. Can you talk a little bit about that one?
Yeah. This is such a good one for like reframing those, especially those negative thoughts, those things that we make up. And this is something, and we talked about it in the episode, and it is something that she taught me. And so the table exercise is where you take this, like, sticky or recurring thought that you can't get out of your head, or maybe it's just something that you have said and you're trying to find out, is this true? And so I'll just give you, like, an example. So say you are at work and you have a project that you have to do, or if you're a student and say you're working on, like, a long-term project or paper or something like that, and it's just due in a couple days, and you have said to yourself, I'm never going to get this project done on time. And that's something to look for, is those, like, absolutes. When we say these absolutes, that's often where the wiggle room is. If we're saying an absolute, then maybe it is not true. So if you are never going to get this project done, then you draw a table. Helps if you write it out. Draw a table right at the top. I'm never going to get this project done. And then for under each leg, you write down your supporting evidence. So maybe the evidence is, I started too late. Then the second one might be, I don't even know what I'm doing. The third might be, I'm just too busy. And then the fourth might be, like, it just feels like too much. And then these things might all feel true, but we can reframe them and look for opportunity within them. And so that I started too late, you might say, okay, yes, I started later than I would like to, but I still have 2 days. It's not due right now. I have 2 days. I don't know what I'm doing might turn into, like, I have notes from my professor or my boss that I can refer to, and then I probably actually know more than I think I do. And so finding the confidence in yourself. If not, I can look stuff up. I can do some research to find things to help me to help me feel more confident. I'm too busy might become like, yes, I have a lot going on. You can acknowledge that. But I can take a few minutes to prioritize things, see if there's something I can say no to, see if there's something that I can commit less time to just for the next 2 days so that I can prioritize this. So that prioritizing skill is really helpful here. And then it feels like too much could turn into, yeah, it's a lot and I can manage it. I can make a plan, break it down into steps that feel manageable. I can eat well, go to bed early, whatever the things are. So I think this exercise, it makes you write it down and it makes you face whether it is true or not. And then you can then, after you've changed all of those legs, you can change the thing at the top. And it says, you might say like, yeah, it's going to be hard, but I can get this thing done.
Yeah, I love that, Hannah. Thank you.
Yeah.
I love it.
And especially if you're like late on something, it can feel like a waste of time to do this exercise. It doesn't take long though. And you shift your mindset, which is going to buy back like tons of time, or it's going to give you tons of time. So.
Yeah. And I think it's really helpful just to kind of to lay everything out that way. It gives you like kind of time and space to really think through any of those negative thoughts that you're having.
Yeah.
That's great.
And then it's so great for regulation.
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked about this before, is like how important it is to pause. Mm-hmm. And that is a pause right there. Stopping and doing any kind of mindset shift, any kind of work to reframe is a pause. Yeah. You're not just reacting.
Right. And you're requiring your brain to shift from that kind of emotional state to being more rational and thinking through things, which is just always really helpful to do.
Yeah. And it reminds me of name it to tame it, which is something else we talked about. Yeah. And I love that. Like the reason when we name our emotions, when we're feeling really angry, the reason it works is because it actually moves you from your emotional brain into the thinking part of your brain. Is you can't say something with the emotional part of your brain. You have to say something with the thinking part of your brain or with the language part of your brain. So it actually does shift you from that emotional place to a place of like, okay, I can name it. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And Hannah, just to call back to what you mentioned a few minutes ago, that we've got to be regulated in order to effectively access all of our other executive function skills, because they're not accessible when we're dysregulated or highly emotional. So that's the first step right there. Make sure you're regulated.
Yeah. And it's hard because you have to be able to identify that. Mm-hmm. You have to be able to notice like, oh, crap, like I am dysregulated right now. Like that's hard to do when you're feeling dysregulated.
It is.
But with practice, anything we practice, we do get better at. So speaking of, like, how can we build practice into our lives? What are some different things that we can do to get better at these things and support?
Yeah. I think, Hannah, really building those routines around whatever practice you're doing. So really making sure that whatever you're doing consistently, practice every day, whether it's, journaling. I know a lot of people like to journal at the end of the day just to kind of get all of their thoughts out, to help process things from the day. That way our brains can, be freed up for the night for sleep rather than, to ruminate on those things. I know oftentimes like my head hits a pillow and I think about a dozen different things from the day and it's not helpful. So just having a notebook beside your bed or anything to write on where you can just quickly just jot down any of those thoughts before sleeping. It's really helpful.
And building some gratitude practice into that is also helpful. Yeah. Our brains are really wired to look for the negative, evolutionarily, right? We needed to make sure that, but we have fewer threats, but our brains don't realize that. So it's important to train our brains to think about the things that we are grateful for, and that can help you with that positive emotions part of like the PERMA thing. And they have done research and they have found that gratitude practice, like a true gratitude practice, actually does make a big difference. It's not just like a woo-woo thing that, I mean, it sounds woo-woo. I agree. Yeah. I kept a gratitude journal for 5 years and I didn't keep up with it. It's one of those line a day journals. So it's like a 5-year line a day journal. And I used it as a gratitude journal, which was so great. But after that, at the end of the 5 years when I filled it, I could not get going on the second one. So I know, sadly, I just like could not build up the habit again, but maybe I'll try again.
Yeah. Did you notice a difference, Hannah, in the time that you did that?
I totally did. I noticed that throughout the day. I'd be like, oh, that's something I'm going to write about later. Oh, I'm so grateful for that thing. And I just really started like keeping an eye out for things. And I did really notice it. And it also doubled as like a really nice journal. And I coincidentally had it during the pandemic. And so like I started it a couple of years before the pandemic and then had it through the pandemic and then afterwards. And looking back on it, it was really, really, really helpful for me, especially during that hard time.
Yeah. I love that. That's great that you maintain that for all 5 years. It's impressive.
Yeah. I did want to say that I have had clients tell me that journaling doesn't always work for them because they may spiral while they're journaling. And so I do want to say that if you've tried journaling and it hasn't been helpful, you might try again with some guardrails, some boundaries. So I know like you might set a timer and you can only write for 3 minutes. And then when the timer goes off, we're done. Or maybe the guardrail is you can only write about this like specific topic or something. So if you're like, oh, journaling doesn't work for me, it doesn't have to be this long thing. Or if you get stuck in it, it doesn't have to be a spiral situation. You can set boundaries there. Sometimes I'll have clients write, like if there's something that is really important to them and they want to, just like as an additional exercise to increase the chance of it happening, then I'll have them journal about it in our sessions. Just write I set a timer for 3 minutes and then they'll just write about it. 3 minutes is actually kind of a long time. And then they'll just write about like what they're going to do, why they're going to do it, what they're afraid of, anticipate the challenges, and then what they think will help. And so that sometimes that just writing it down can kind of solidify it and help you remember.
Yeah, I love that, Hannah. I love the idea of having that time boundary on it too. I think that's really helpful. Yeah. And as you're talking about that too, I was thinking about how Neha mentioned, always having something to look forward to, just the power of that, whether it's it could be a big thing or something really small, but really just keeping ourselves connected and always looking forward to whatever just really brings that, again, that positive focus to things. And we can tie that into a little, like maybe you're making a plan with your family or a friend. That's going to require some of those EF skills to really plan out those things to look forward to. So
yeah, it's like a fun way of practicing. Practicing your EF skills. Yes. Yeah. And I liked how she said, like, it could be, I think she was talking about skiing. So it could be a ski trip, but it also could be, just like your morning coffee. Actually, just yesterday, I was talking with one of my clients and she really loves coffee and she likes making French press coffee. So there's a lot of steps in there, but she loves it so much. And so we got on and she was making it for herself and she was just like looking forward to it. And it was like a nice, I don't know, it was just nice to see what Neha had said in practice.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah. I think about that one a lot now that after having that conversation with her, just, to remind myself, what am I looking forward to today?
Yeah, and I think just like we were saying before, our brains are wired for the negative, so we can get stuck in that. Oh, what are the horrible things that I have to do today, and what are the things that I'm not looking forward to, and I have to do that phone call or I have to do that meeting. So it can be helpful to, and not just another mindset shift.
Yes, absolutely.
Another thing that ties right into that really is that idea of mindfulness. What does mindfulness mean for you in your life?
Oh, that's a good question, Hannah. I really, for me, it's just about trying to pause and just think about whatever moment it is, like really just being in the moment without all the distractions. It could be, I love to spend time outside. So really just paying attention when I'm outside and just enjoying that. Or when I'm with my family, just really trying to be in the moment there. Just any of that I feel like is very calming for me. I also do some yoga, which involves a little bit of that like intentional kind of meditative process in there as well. And that's really helpful for me too. Just like paying attention to my own breathing and what my body's doing in the moment. I think that mindfulness can look all kinds of different ways for people. I think when people hear mindfulness, I think it calls to mind very specific like mindfulness practices. But I think that anything that just really helps to regulate the nervous system and bring you back into the moment, to connect with yourself, that's kind of how I see mindfulness. But what does that look like for you, Hannah?
Yeah, same. I've tried to do like a meditation practice and it just doesn't work for me. I've tried so hard, all the apps and all the things. And I'm just not a meditator. Yeah. But what I do is like if say I go for a walk or something, I will often leave my headphones at home and not listen to music and just try to notice everything that's around. The other thing that I also really like to do is like if we're on the train or I don't know, like even in the car, especially when you're driving, you really should pay attention. But just like you said, just sort of like pay more attention than I might normally and notice everything. One of my favorite regulation strategies that I use for myself is I just sit and I close my eyes and I try to listen and hear every single thing that I can hear. And it's so interesting. You think it's quiet, but it's not. There's especially like in the backyard, and I try to like identify every single individual sound that I can hear. And it's pretty cool. Yeah. And I just set a timer for 2 minutes because I want to know that I have an out. Like I'm not going to have to do this like for the whole afternoon. Yeah. So I just set a little timer on my watch for 2 minutes. But so that's, and also for yoga, I'm the same. I do yoga as well. And I have found that over the years, before when we would like sit in the beginning of class and do that grounding or whatever they call it in the beginning, centering, I would notice my mind wandering everywhere and I would get upset with myself like, oh my God, Hannah, you can't even just sit quietly for, 5 minutes while she's doing this. And so what I've noticed over time is I don't know if I've gotten any better at my mind not wandering, but what I have stopped doing is getting mad at myself for having my mind wander. And that is huge. Yeah. Right? Of course, our minds are going to wander. The more we practice, we get better at it. I should start to notice. I should pay attention if I'm better than I used to be. Yeah. But I have like stopped beating myself up for having a wandering mind. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's hard to tune things out. I mean, it really, really is. I have a good friend who practices meditation every single morning for a pretty lengthy period of time. And the idea of that it blows me away. I think I have to be doing something. I have to be doing something physical in order to kind of have that. But, I mean, I know I've listened to interviews with Dan Harris and he's talked a lot about how like he changed his life through a meditation practice and he did some number of hours or minutes practice like in the middle of Times Square where he just like sat in a chair and meditated for, I don't know, I can't remember how long it was, but yeah. And he really says it's like bicep curl for your brain. And I agree. It really is like that.
I see that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it's hard and it's kind of boring if it's not for you. Yes. But we can do it in other ways. It doesn't have to be home. Yeah. Actually, I'm doing a presentation on Thursday and I'm talking about a little bit about mindfulness and meditation and my slide says not just for hippies.
I love that. Yes.
Here I am with my like long hair coming in. No, trust me, guys, it's not just for hippies. Let's all say Om together.
Have a comfortable seat on the floor, everyone.
Yes. You will now join my meditation cult.
For the next hour and a half. Okay,
that's right. You thought you were coming to learn about EF skills for high school, but actually...
Oh, let me know how that goes, Hannah.
I will. I will.
Hannah, I think that the common thread to all of this is just really that idea of checking in with ourselves, to help, build that self-awareness. That is a piece of mindfulness, just having that self-awareness. And, it also ties into the EF skill of metacognition too. And Hannah, I know this is something that you talk about a lot and have worked on a lot as well with your clients. So what are some ways that you approach the whole concept of metacognition?
So when we talk about metacognition, we're talking about thinking about our own thinking. And I like to say it's the self-awareness skill. So it really helps us learn how our own brains work, what works for us, what doesn't work for us. And interestingly, it is the last executive function skill that we really get good at. And the reason for that is because it does rely on other executive function skills to be, for you to be good at it. So it is hard and it does take practice. And so one thing that I do a lot is I ask people to anticipate what they think might happen based on what has happened in the past or based on just like what they know about themselves. So we do a lot of anticipating challenges, anticipating successes. And then when the thing happens, when they do the thing, then we look back and then say, okay, so of the things that you predicted, what came true? And, what were you possibly wrong about? What surprised you? And then another thing is just building in a lot of conversation about that. And I think for me anyway, the best way to learn metacognitive thinking skills is to talk about them and just practice saying those things and thinking those things. Because there's not, maybe there are like actual sort of exercises you could do to strengthen metacognition, but a lot of it is learning to notice and learning to ask yourself that, which I think just comes with practice and exposure.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. I do think that it's just about building that self-awareness.
And so if you are listening and you have little kids, you can start metacognitive thinking practice really early. I learned this from my sister, who is a speech language pathologist, and she works with little kids. And she's also an executive function coach. And she said that we can help kids learn to start thinking this way when they're super little. We can ask them, was that easy or hard? Whatever it was. You don't have to say like, how did you feel about that? Just say, was it easy or hard?
Yeah, that's great.
There's a siren going by my house right now. And then, as your kids get older, you can say like, hey, how do you think this is going to go today? And then after the thing, how did it go? Did your fears come true? Mm-hmm. Or, were you able to rely on what you thought you'd be able to rely on? No.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. What about you? How do you support it with your clients?
The same way, similarly, by, really just digging into those questions and giving them questions that they can consistently ask themselves for that self-reflection. I think any amount of self-reflection helps to build metacognition too. Mm-hmm. I always love like introducing this to clients, just the whole concept of metacognition, because you said thinking about your thinking, and that's always the term that I use, which is such a strange concept if you think about it, but it's necessary. It's absolutely necessary to practice to build that metacognition.
Yeah, and it is easier to get better at things when you can recognize, hey, I'm getting better at this.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. That's self-reflection. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yep. And I think that's one thing that's nice about having a coach is that we can track that for them if they're not tracking it. If they're not able to track it yet, we can track that. We can track that progress and name it and celebrate those wins.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which can be really hard to see, especially when you're like really suffering. You're really in the middle of some really hard stuff. Yeah. It can be hard to see anything good. So having someone who has a little bit of an outside perspective but knows to look for that metacognitive growth, then it's nice to have that.
Yeah, absolutely. That is such an important part, I think, of the coaching process, is just being able to really highlight those successes, because it can be really hard when you're faced with a lot of challenges and feeling overwhelmed. It can feel like nothing is going well. So it's a big piece of it.
Yeah. Or if you're a parent, there's just so much going on when you're a parent, and you have so many feelings and emotions and baggage and stuff with your kids that it can be hard to see those wins. And like, I've had a lot of conversations with parents where I've said, like, hey, like this is happening, this growth is happening, and they have said, oh yeah, wow, I didn't notice that, like I didn't see that, but now that you say it, I can see it. And I think it's just so hard when you're really in it. So it is nice to have that. Like, I know I benefit from it too. And I try to, like, I'll ask my husband, like, have you noticed any improvement? Because this is something that I've been working on and it's really hard for me to see. Have you noticed, like, am I less anxious, or am I whatever I'm working on? And yeah. Although one time I recently asked him and he really hesitated. He was like, well, I'm like, oh, dang it.
Oh, shoot.
Guess I gotta work harder.
Yeah. A lot was said during that pause.
A lot was said. Yes. Yeah. He was very kind about it, but also I was like, oh, dang it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yep.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's hard. Life is hard. It's hard. It's hard and it's worth it, right? All this, and we talked about that with Neha. It is hard and it's totally worth it. And also, like, all of these things that we talked about, you don't have to do them all in one day.
Right.
You don't have to do any of them. You could pick something else. But, if you are interested in being happier, more content, then you got to do something. It's not going to happen magically.
Yeah, absolutely. So, take a step, whatever step it is, take it. Yeah.
Yep. All right. So thanks everybody for listening today. That's it for us. Check out the show notes for more information. We'll link a bunch of the things that we talked about in there today. And just a reminder that this podcast is not a substitute for professional mental health support. Please take care of yourself and reach out for some help from a qualified licensed provider if you need it.
Yeah, and please reach out. We would love to hear from you. And for now, you can email us at hello@icanbehappier.com or visit our website at icanbehappier.com. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, and don't forget to give us 5 stars on Apple and Spotify.
Yes, please. 5 stars, please.
Yes. And tell your friends about us.
Yes.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
And now, for those of you who hung around till the end, here's a blooper. I guess now we have to start talking.
So, Hannah, you heard about that PERMA model?
Yeah. Oh, all right. So,